We had her moved here to the hospice center, and it immediately was just such a different environment for her, calming, peaceful. It was just such a blessing to have her be in a place that was peaceful and comforting for her at that stage of her life.
Welcome to Better Together podcast, produced and directed by Our Hospice of South Central Indiana, a not-for-profit organization dedicated to making every moment count. We will share true stories about hospice, palliative, and personal care services that we provide in 22 counties all over the state of Indiana. I'm your host and president, Steph Cain. Well, in the studio today, I have a great friend, Tracy Haddad. Welcome, Tracy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
So glad to have you. Tracy is a leader and advocate in the Columbus community, and she served as interim director of the Columbus, Indiana Philharmonic. She's also actively involved in supporting a number of local organizations and is a business leader in Columbus as well. Her family has deep roots here with Columbus Container, founded by her father, Bob Haddad. Tracy currently serves as board chair of the landmark Columbus Foundation, and she's a generous supporter of Our Hospice and has a personal connection to Our Hospice care through her family's experience. We're so grateful to have you, Tracy, to share your perspective with community care and what it means to give back. So thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, first and most importantly, tell us about your grandkids.
Well, I have 4 now.
Wow.
So they range from 10 to 6 months.
Fun.
I have 2 of them that are close to me, and then 2 that are out. One's in Colorado and the other's in Utah.
So you can drive to a couple of them and then you have to fly and travel.
Yeah.
But you do. I know you do.
Well, my 2 oldest ones, they live about 10 minutes from me. So they're over quite a bit for dinner, lunch on Saturdays and Sundays. And yeah, we've got the pool open now, so they'll be over swimming.
So much fun.
It'll be fun.
Yeah.
And I'm going out in about a week and a half to take care of the 6-month-old, so I'll get my hands on her too and get the love on her.
Oh, I
have her to
love
myself
it.
because certainly be
So good. Now, I know there's a special name, that the kids gave you as their grandma.
It's Bunny.
It's Bunny. How did that happen? It's just what they said.
Well, my mother was Nana.
Okay.
And my father's grandmother was Mimi. And so Tammy, my oldest sister, she's Mimi, and my other sister is Nana. So I decided I needed a different grandma name.
There you go.
And Bunny was one of my
Perfect.
So
Okay.
we went with Bunny.
I love it.
And they love it. And I love to hear them when they see me and they'll go, Bunny.
And they come running.
Yeah, and they come running. It's so cute.
It's the best. Well, just tell us a little bit about yourself, Tracy, what it was like growing up here in Columbus.
Well, we moved here when I was in 7th grade, and my dad had worked for another box company, and they moved him around quite frequently. And when they moved here, my mom started putting down roots because I think she recognized this as a community where she herself could find her place.
Right.
Because we were all, Hayden, my youngest sister, was in elementary school. I was going in 7th grade. My brother was in 9th grade, and Tammy, my oldest sister, was in high school.
Wow.
So I think it was a time she felt like she could become active in some other things and manageable with kids that are a little bit older. And so she got involved with the Philharmonic. She was a music major. So music was her passion. So she was involved with the Philharmonic from early on. In fact, she actually served as the executive director for the Philharmonic.
I did not know that.
Well, I did not know that either or didn't remember it, I guess, until I was writing her obituary.
Wow.
And researching some things that she had done. And I thought, how ironic is that? Because she was the executive director for that back kind of when it first started with David Bowden.
Okay.
And then I actually then served as the interim executive director during the time period where they were renovating the Helen Haddad Hall. So that was a great honor for me to be able to finish that project with her name on it.
Wow. And what a beautiful space we have here.
It is.
And to have the gift of music and the arts. And you've always been passionate about the arts.
Yes. Yeah, I get that from my mom.
Okay.
So she started putting down some roots. So when my dad's company came to him at that point and said, we're going to move you again, my mom said, no, we're not moving.
4 kiddos.
So, yeah.
And probably a dog. I know there's always a dog. Yeah.
So my dad then set about starting Columbus Container and establishing his manufacturing company, making corrugated boxes.
Wow. Before Amazon, though.
Yeah. way before Amazon.
Yeah.
His mother she could not figure out how anybody could make money, making boxes.
Yeah.
She just couldn't figure that out.
So
Because his
smart.
brother was a doctor. So
Right.
she would always say, "This is my son, the doctor." And then Bob,
What do you
tell
do?
him what
I love it. I love it.
So it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
So he, and actually in 1984,
Mhm.
received the Small Businessman of the Year award for the state of Indiana in
Is that right?
manufacturing and in corporate responsibility.
Oh, wow. That's
So that was a big part of the philanthropic philosophy of my mom and dad,
Journey.
was to give back to the community that had supported his
Mm-hmm.
endeavors in, establishing this business. He and J.I. became friends, and I
Okay.
think a lot of that Philharmonic, or a lot of that philanthropic philosophy, was introduced to my dad through J.I.
Wow, what a gift to grow up in a family with both parents really having a passion and purpose in the community and,
Right.
and yeah, really being philanthropic, like you said, and willing to give back and support, the community. Awesome.
And my dad, they didn't have a lot of money as when we were kids. So once my dad started the box business at Columbus Container, they started doing well. And so I think they saw that as a way to give back. And that was important to them.
Yeah. Now, you've stayed very involved, Tracy, in organizations in Columbus, including Landmark's Columbus Foundation. So what keeps you passionate about still serving in this community?
Well, I think having grown up here, I realized the significance of Columbus. And Betsy Baker, another friend of mine that I serve on the Landmark Columbus Foundation board with, and a high school friend,
Okay.
have talked about this, how sometimes when you're growing up here, you don't realize the significance of what you are growing up in the midst of.
Yes.
The significance of the architecture and the programs and the events that we have here, the diversity. And so when you come back, it's kind of an eye-opener to come back and think, wow, this is where I grew up. So I think Landmark Columbus Foundation is doing a really nice job in engaging the young folks, whether it's elementary school, junior high, and high school, into their programs in order to help educate them as to really the significance of this town, Columbus, and where they're growing up.
When I came to Columbus from Bloomington, and I'd heard about the architecture and the tight-knit community and the wonderful, supportive, philanthropic mindset, and really Columbus is the place where people get things done. So if they see a need and they want it, we pull together and make it happen. And I say we because I feel very much a part of Columbus right now. So Tracy, you were my first friend here in Columbus. I remember just taking this role and having a temporary apartment right downtown at City Hall so that I didn't have to commute back and forth as, our family relocated. And you dragged me around all the events. And I'm just so happy you did and introduced me. And I'll tell you, really from the outside looking in, I could see that just the special, tight-knit community and the special gift that Columbus really is. We, in fact, have this. We're sitting in our inpatient hospice center right now, and there's only 5 in the state of Indiana that are still thriving, if you will. There's not one in the United States that makes any money, right? So this is really a gift to the community. If you can operate one of these inpatient units, because there are fixed costs and all kinds of regulations, if you will, to keep the doors open to serve the community, and it really takes philanthropic support to have a place like this thrive. And so I felt so blessed to be here. Columbus is a strong culture of, philanthropy. Why do you think it is that giving back is such an important part that makes our community special?
Well, I really think it started with J.I. Miller and just that whole concept of creating a place where people want to be and where people want to live. And activating spaces and creating interesting community where it will draw people to want to live here and want to work here. And so a lot of those families, I'll say the Johnsons, the Elwoods, the Morvacks, a lot of those generational families were friends with my mom and dad. Owen Hungerford, who was J.I.'s right-hand man, he was good friends with my mom and dad, both he and Annette. And so I think there's a contagiousness to it.
Yeah.
And you do realize, and there's been a couple of boards that I've served on here in the community, and we say Columbus is a great place, but we need to continue to work at making it a great place and a place where people want to live and work.
your family experienced, if I bring us back to hospice care, when your dad was on service with us just last year, and we honored and recognized him through a program that was unique here in Columbus. It's actually, we honor veterans. We're doing that, in a national scope and in many hospices now. But what did that mean to your family at the time when we were able to
That
have
was
that?
so special.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very special. I know it was very special to my dad and watching him through that ceremony, and to have Mark Pillar deliver that message and to honor my dad in that way because he was very involved in the Philharmonic. And so he and my dad were friends and knew, each other well. It was nice to have all my family and some of my nieces and nephews there for that. Yeah, it was a great honor and such a special thing for hospice.
It really was beautiful. I think even, your family invited others that were on the perimeter, in the building also that were veterans to come in and experience that. And, Mark having, served like he has, our country as well as, your dad, Bob, and some of the others that were in the room. It was just so important to recognize. Yeah, it was really great. Tracy, tell us a little story about your dad, if you will.
Well, I was going to tell you a little story about my dad while he was in hospice.
Okay.
One day, we had movies brought in for him, and there were some old movies that he would just watch and rewatch with his hospice caregivers. And one day, my sister and I went, and my cousin was in town.
Okay.
And my dad loved the movie High Noon. Old Western.
I was going to say they're Westerns. My dad liked that too.
And my dad was sitting in his chair. He was up and sitting in his chair, and the three of us, my sister and my cousin, we were laying in his bed watching High Noon.
It's so good. I like a visual.
He would always tell us, now he's going to say this, or is this going to happen? So he was telling us all along the way as to what was going to happen. But that's just a great memory to have with my sister and my cousin.
There's a number of, I remember the chocolate malt. How did all that start? But I know that's what he could taste and he loved.
Oh, yeah. Tony Moorback.
Oh.
Tony Moorback were good friends. And they used to love to go to Zaharico's.
Okay.
They would have a milkshake. And so he loved those chocolate milkshakes.
Yeah.
The first one I took to him, he took a big sip of it and he was like, like making all these yummy noises.
Yeah.
It was just so cute. It was like a little kid. Yeah, he enjoyed that. So now, after that, if people would ask, can we take him something? And I would say, just take him a chocolate milk from Zaharico's.
Yeah.
I love that.
Good. That's cute. What stood out to you most about the care and support that you received from hospice?
Well, let's start with my mom. Can we
Yes.
start with my
Can we? Yeah.
Yeah. So she was hospitalized in December. And then ultimately we decided, I'll tell you a little story.
Yeah.
If you know my mom and dad, my mom and dad, they have been married for over 65 years. And, by the time they both passed. And so they were high school sweethearts, had known each other since like second grade.
Okay.
And so they were little soulmates. But when my mom went into the hospital, we ended up moving her to Four Seasons because they thought she needed a surgery and she was going to have to go through some rest and recovery in order to be strong enough to have a surgery. Well, I was there visiting one day. I think all my siblings were out of town. And so I was there at Four Seasons and left to go to the office for a little bit. And I walked in my office and my dad immediately calls me on my cell phone and says, can you please come back?
Oh.
So your mother is really upset with me. And they had a little spat.
Okay. Okay.
So I walk in,
and
my dad goes, oh, look, Tracy's back. And I thought, okay, you told her told me to come back, but okay.
Yeah.
So I sat them down and kind of talked a little bit through that. And then I asked my dad to leave the room so I could have a conversation with my mom about what her wishes were for her end of life and what she wanted that to look like. My dad had a very different idea. And so I felt it was really important for me to give her that voice.
Yes.
To be able to determine what she really wanted from hospice. And so ultimately, within a day, we had her moved here to the hospice center. And immediately, it was just such a different environment for her. Calming, peaceful. She was ready at that point. She had already been through 2 battles of cancer, and so she just didn't have any fight left in her. She verbalized that to me. So it was just such a blessing to have her be in a place that was peaceful and comforting, for her at that stage of her life.
How was that for you?
Well, I would come in the morning because I'm the morning person. So
Okay,
I would
yes.
come in the morning and I put a bird feeder outside of her window because she always loved the birds. And I had a little aromatherapy, thing going in her room, which the nurses loved because it was lavender. It was one of my mom's favorite scents. And I brought in some classical music to play for her in her room because she loved classical music,
Beautiful.
obviously. The Philharmonic came in, and Vanessa Edwards from the Philharmonic
I didn't
brought some students.
Lovely.
Because my mom was a big supporter of their educational program. Brought them in, and many of the other patients and family members could hear that music being played in her room and just really enjoyed that. So that was a blessing to be able to share that with not only my mom but others. And so that was kind of my time with her. And then we had all been here visiting with my mom when we left to go to dinner. And while we were at dinner, my mom passed. And so
that's how she wanted to go.
Yeah. And I kept saying, she's not going to pass with us sitting here.
You knew it.
The pastor was here, Reeves Lunt. And so as we were coming back into the building, he was exiting and he said, I just wanted to let you know your mother's just passed. And so I said, would you please come back in?
Yeah.
And pray,
with us.
Yeah, with us as a family.
Yeah. I want to tell you, as you were describing some of the things you did, for your mom, that was hospice care. So many times we think about the meds that we want to manage symptoms and pain and breathing and some of those things, of course. But the rest of hospice is those beautiful things, the bird feeders, the aromatherapy, the music, because we're mind, body, and spirit. And so we want to take care of all those things for our patient and for the family and the loved ones. So that was beautiful.
You guys made it possible.
Yeah.
You were so flexible and so willing to let us bring in those things and to do some of those things for her. That made her stay here. But the nurses were incredible.
We walked through the room that your mom was in today when we were seeing the refresh. And so that is part of, what I'm passionate about is increasing access to care and then having these beautiful sacred spaces for families when they need us most. And, keeping this investment in the community.
It is important. Having hospice here is a gift. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
It really is a gift.
If you're listening today, for the listeners, what advice do you have, Tracy, for others that might be thinking about hospice care, but maybe all the family members are on the same page? And I know bringing people together, in the family that all have a different relationship with that loved one can be difficult. Any advice or one piece of advice you can ask them to think about?
I would say the most important thing that sticks out in my mind is being able to evaluate what your loved one needs, whether it's spiritually, emotionally, physically, for their medical needs, whatever their condition might be. Explore the best options that are available to provide them with the best quality of life towards the end. And also realize that all of your siblings may not all be on the same page at the same time. And sometimes it takes a sibling or two, or maybe all of them. They're on their own time frame.
Right.
And so they need to be able to work through that themselves. And maybe if you can help them, work through that and get to the point where, they can realize that, they really need to be in hospice, and maybe hospice is the best care for them to keep them comfortable and to provide for your loved one so that you can have that best quality time with your loved one at the end. And you're not trying to provide care as much as just time and just being present.
Yeah.
Because you can't buy time.
You cannot.
Time is, that time is so precious towards the end.
I'm going to transition us a little bit back to legacy.
Okay.
And you've done a really great job of honoring your parents in legacy, and actually you and your siblings. But you've done a beautiful job. I think about meeting in Helen Haddad Hall, and I think about your dad in our gardens here. And there are so many other places that legacy is honored, And so for others in Columbus who care about our community, what would you encourage them to think about when it comes to giving back?
I obviously grew up in a very philanthropic family, and so it's hard not to want to be philanthropic and realize the value of that. What is meaningful to me? I realize this was maybe meaningful or that was meaningful to my parents. And there, in a lot of ways, I want to continue that legacy and continue that support to honor my mom or my dad. But what is meaningful to me? And what am I passionate about?
Great question.
And so I think it's about delving into the community and finding out where your passion lies, and what's most important to you, and what brings real value to the community. Because that's really what you want. You want to continue bringing value and quality services, quality programs to your community. And I think that's what hospice does.
Well, this is Better Together, a podcast dedicated to making every moment count. Thank you for listening. Please like us and share in your social media channels. If you have a question or you'd like to learn more about a specific topic, you can find us at ourhospice.org or call 812-314-8083. Until next time, remember, life is short. We are better together, making every single moment count.